Hello friends, good morning. I Professor Basuraj Kuruchi welcome you all for today's lecture of subject Elements of Cost and Market Analysis, module number 2, video number 18. Here we shall discuss today about types of demand. In previous class we have seen the various determinants of our demand, that is 5 determinants which we saw, that is number 1 price of goods or services, income of buyer, prices of related goods or services, tastes of consumers, expectations. So these are the 5 determinants of demand. Today we shall move ahead, or we shall see the various types of demand. So in types of demand, there are 5 types of demand, that is joint demand, competitive demand, derived demand, direct demand and composite demand. First point, that is joint demand. Joint demand is nothing but when a product is jointly demanded with some other products, we can call it as joint demand. That is, when one product is demanded jointly with some other product, it is called as joint demand. It exists when 2 or more goods are required together at the same time. Joint demand is found in case of complementary goods. The demand for pen also means there is demand for refill or ink. The demand for tennis racket implies that the demand for tennis ball. The demand for cars gives rise to demand for petrol. The demand for sand would give rise to demand for cement and gravel. If we are to make concrete, then we require sand, cement and gravel. Similarly, the demand for cups indicates the demand for saucers, and demand for shoes means demand for socks too. So these products are used jointly, which means the one product is used with the other product. The examples what we saw over here. First example we saw pen and refill, then tennis and racket. Then if you want to make concrete, there is a joint demand for sand, cement and gravel. Similar way, if we are using shoes, we require socks also. So these are the products which are used jointly or together. The next demand is competitive demand. Here, when 2 commodities are fairly close substitutes for one another, an increase in the quantity demanded for one of them will reduce the demand for other. Here, when 2 commodities are fairly close substitutes for one, and an increase of quantity demanded of one will reduce the demand for other. To some extent, all commodities are in competitive demand with one another. It is because the purchase of more of one thing necessitates the purchase of less of others. Therefore, any change in demand for one thing to some extent affects the demand for the other. For example, an increased demand for mutton might reduce the demand for chicken. Similarly, a change in demand for fish might conversely affect the demand for meat. So here, this is a competitive demand. When one demand increases, the other demand may fall. Here, both the products are, say, competitive or close substitutes which can be used instead of which. are treated as, say, competitive demand. The next is direct demand and derived demand. Here, the demand for the final product or the ultimate object is called the direct demand, whereas there is a derived demand for one commodity or service when it is want as the result of the demand for another commodity or service. For example, demand for house is a direct demand, but the demand for carpenter, labor is derived from the demand for house. There is a derived demand for floor, which is required to satisfy the demand for drain. So here the direct demand means it is demanded directly, and derived demand means the demand which is arrived from the direct demand. For example, the demand for house is the demand for carpenter, laborers, etc., painter and all, because we want house, but to complete that house we require again these things. So therefore these are the two types of demand, that is direct demand and derived demand. Then the last type of demand is composite demand. Composite demand is the total demand for a commodity which arises when it is required for different purposes and will be the sum of the different demands. In other words, a commodity may be demanded for several purposes. The demand for such a commodity is called the composite demand. It is composed of demand for which of the several uses, where one product is used compositely for many purposes. For example, coal may be demanded for household purpose, transportation and for generating electricity. It is also used in the manufacturing of steel. So, the demand for coal is a composite demand. Similarly, the demand for steel is composite demand. Steel may be used in constructing bridges, shipbuilding, or for manufacturing domestic utensils. So, it is a composite demand. So, these are the types of demand, wherein number one, joint demand, wherein one product is demanded jointly with other product. For example, shoes and socks. Then competitive demand. Competitive demand means when two products are demanded competitively and rise in one demand will make to fall in other demand. For example, here mutton and chicken. If demand for mutton increases or meat, then chicken will decreases. So this is an example of competitive demand. Derived and direct demand. Direct demand means the demand for one product directly. Example, there is a demand for house, but along with that there is a derived demand for carpenter, painter or laborers. Then composite demand, which means one product is demanded and used for various purposes. For example, steel, which is used for construction bridges, houses, shipbuilding, and also for, say, preparation of domestic utensils which are used in cooking. So these are the 5 types of demand. A question may come for your examination. Explain the types of demand. At that point of time, you all should write these 5 points. So with this, we shall stop here. Thank you. Good day.